Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Local Voices podcast. We are up to episode 9. That is so wild to say. I can't believe we're already at 9. But this week, I had the privilege of speaking with Amber Krause. She is mom to 3 sweet little kids. She has 2 boys and a girl, and both of her sons have autism. She is also the special needs coordinator at our local church. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into the conversation. Hi, Amber. How are you?
Hey, Tori. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's so nice to meet you. We've kind of messaged for a few weeks and we haven't really seen each other's faces, so it's so nice to meet you.
Yes, it's nice to put a face to the words.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. So for those listening, Amber and I were connected through Ashley Jones. So Ashley Jones, if you guys remember and have listened to past episodes, she recorded with me. Her episode is The Heart of Fostering. It's episode 2. That one was released back on January 3rd. So if you guys haven't listened to that one yet, please go back and make sure you listen to that one too. But yeah, Ashley and I had kind of just been talking and she sent me Amber's information and she was like, Amber is so sweet. And actually we were emailing and she had said, these are her words. She said, she's taught me about ministering and just being friends with kids with special needs. And I thought that was so sweet. And I actually think it's a really important conversation to have, because not everybody has somebody with special needs or kids with special needs in their lives. And sometimes, I think it's important to kind of know how we can support families with these children and also support people that are living with special needs. So yeah, I think it's a really important conversation to have.
I agree. And it's not much unless you've been in contact with somebody or have someone in your family. I always say you don't know what you don't know. So I think this is a great opportunity to kind of share a little bit into our lives and what it's like to be on this very different journey, a parallel road as other parents, but still a little different, a lot more challenges and a lot more joys too, though, I think.
Yeah. And so if I understand, you have 2 boys with autism. Is that correct?
I do. I have 3 children and my oldest is 11 and I have a 9-year-old daughter in the middle. And then my youngest boy is 6 and my 2 boys, my bookends, have autism.
So if you want to kind of tell me a little bit of your background, your family's background, I know you said that you were surprised to find out your first son had autism. And that was a little bit of, just a little surprising, I guess, right?
Yes, absolutely. I was a nurse prior to getting married and getting pregnant. And my son ended up having torticollis, which just basically means his neck was kind of to the side, his muscle was shorter, and we were in physical therapy and just spending a lot of time with a physical therapist that had the same age child as me. And I would hear her stories about her child and how her child was developing and talking. And I suddenly realized there was a growing gap between my child and hers. And through speaking with her, I realized that he was quite developmentally delayed in more areas than I thought. And that ended up leading to me going to the Marcus Autism Center. And at 14 months old, he was diagnosed with autism. And at the time, he was one of their youngest that they had ever diagnosed.
Oh, wow. So what were some of the signs that you were seeing or noticing the differences, like you said?
He had started to babble and then, the mama things, and then that just completely stopped. Mm-hmm. He did not even make eye contact when I was feeding him. I could be sitting right in front of his high chair and he wouldn't even be looking at me. He'd be looking everywhere, but he didn't play with toys or point. I'm trying to think what else were the big, those were the big signs. And he would spin all the time. Spin, and never get dizzy. We just thought that was an interesting talent of his, but turns out it was not. It was a stem, but those were the big signs that I realized need to get him checked out.
Okay. And so how likely is it if you have one child, because I actually don't know, if you have one child diagnosed with autism, that you will have another child with autism? Is that pretty common or is that kind of rare?
I believe I recently feel like I just saw a study about this. I think there's a 25% chance that you'll have another sibling with autism.
Okay, so not super common.
Yeah, because I know in my church, we have multiple families, and probably about a third of them have more than one child with autism.
You actually are the special needs coordinator at your church, is that correct?
I am. I am so blessed to have that job. I took over that position about 3 years ago, and it's just been amazing. I cover basically birth through adulthood. Anyone with any type of special needs or just a challenging season in their life, I get to step in and make sure the gospel is adapted for them and that they are comfortable where they are, and if they need a buddy or whatnot. So it's amazing. It's amazing to be able to share Jesus with this particular population.
Oh yeah, I think we kind of talked about this a little bit on our phone conversation. I think that that's a massive need in our church to kind of fill that gap. So I think that's so cool. How did you come to be in that role? Do you have a background? I know you have your sons, and you've probably learned a ton, just raising them and going to therapies and stuff like that. But how did you kind of come to fill that role at church?
Well, I started out when I joined the church. I worked in the children's ministry, and I was a preschool teacher for 3 or 4 years. And I had reached out to the children's minister and said multiple times, I would love to be a buddy. I would love to work, with the special needs kids. And I guess she had always heard that you should give special needs parents a break. And not put them back in a situation like that they basically live in. Like that's just what she had, heard from other people. And so they kept me in children's ministry, which was fine. I love kids. And then our special needs coordinator, her husband got a head pastoring job at a church in another state. So she was leaving and they were desperate. And they had asked everyone in the special needs program already and no one could do it. And she said God just all of a sudden reminded her that a couple years ago, I had asked her if I could be a buddy because I like working with special needs kids. And on a limb, she reached out and I prayed about it and talked about it with my mom and husband. And they're like, yes, do it. This would be amazing for you. My kids were getting a little older. I was staying at home, but I was kind of doing just volunteer positions everywhere. So this was kind of a perfect way to serve the church and serve special needs kids and families, which has become a big passion of mine since having my own kids.
Oh, I'm sure. And honestly, what a sweet way that God prepped you for it. You're living it and you know what's kind of needed and how to step in and help and support these families. So I think that's so cool. But how is it for you kind of, yes, like you're saying a second ago, you're living it at home and then you're going and this is your job as well. I mean, how has that been for you?
It's been really good, actually. It's been really sweet and special to be able to step in to these other people's lives because being a special needs parent is extremely isolating. That is a common theme you will hear probably about 90% of parents. We lose friends. We lose, close family sometimes doesn't always agree with how we raise our children because of their diagnoses. And so it's really, really lonely. And I was the same. I had no friends. I was extremely lonely. And so it's almost like stepping in this job. I get almost like built-in friends, like all these families, we just connect differently. And so it's actually been really good for my soul and good for my all around good. It obviously has some challenges because as our program is growing, when I took it over, it was only for the children's program. It was a very small, it was 5-10 hours a week, but now we have adults and we have newborns with special needs. And now we're trying to expand our family programming for special needs parents. So it's taking a lot more hours. So I am trying to learn the balance, but it's definitely not the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see how it's helping you kind of create your community, and I think that probably translates to a lot of different things like, I homeschool my kids, you find your homeschool community. I mean, and sadly, there are parents that have children that are going through cancer and they find their cancer family, like through that. So I can absolutely see how that's kind of helped. But you mentioned this too a few weeks ago, it feeling really lonely and affecting friendships. And I thought that was a really important thing to kind of touch on. I'm glad you brought that up. How, in the big scheme of things, can that or will that potentially affect your friendships? Like what can that look like?
Yeah, because I know on the surface it probably doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but I know in particular I can speak specifically from autism, because they tend to have these big feelings they can't process the same way we do. So going out in public places like playgrounds or meeting for coffee or going to a Chick-fil-A and letting your kids play at a playground, like typical mom get-togethers, that is not usually able to happen with special needs parents. Because more than likely, if you go to a playground, your child may elope. They may leave. They may run away. So you can't sit down with a mom on a bench while your kids play. You have to watch them the entire time. Or if you go into a Chick-fil-A, it can be really loud and overstimulating. And so your child might hit the floor and have a 15-minute long tantrum. So the whole time, you're sort of like on edge. And so you tend to, I feel like most of us try it first. And you end up not being able to talk with the other moms at all. And then you end up just saying, no, I don't think we can do that. No, I don't think that's good for so-and-so. That's really overwhelming there. And I think as typical parents, it's probably hard. You're like, okay, well, they keep saying no. I don't know. You know what I mean? And then you just slowly drift apart. I don't think it's almost never like your friend's like, oh, you have a special needs child, I'm not coming around you. I think it's just a slow, our lives are so different. It just isn't.
Right.
It's so hard to make it work.
So I think that kind of leads into the biggest question that I really kind of want this episode to focus on. How can families support families like yours? Families who aren't walking the same road and maybe don't have a deeper understanding of what's happening with your child. But you, as the mom, obviously do. You understand, okay, no, this typically is not age-appropriate behavior, but it is very typical for what he is walking through and what he's dealing with in the case of your sons. And, like you said, autism is going to look different from somebody who has Down syndrome. I mean, all the special needs are going to come with their own challenges. So how can families support families that aren't walking through that or are walking through that?
I think, first of all, is believing us would be my biggest piece of advice. If we share something that's difficult in our lives, like our child only eats peanut butter, just believe that we have tried everything, that if you know us, we're probably a well-educated mom and have probably spent hours on the internet, like searching we've probably talked to our doctors and been to therapists. And instead of like blowing us off or saying, oh, I bet they'd eat if they were hungry enough, or, just those hurtful lines, they can really dig deep because we are trying and we often feel like failures because our kids aren't doing what they should be doing. I say that in quotes. But first of all, just believe us. If we say we're having a horrible day and our child doesn't sleep, believe us. Don't be like, well, I mean, I'm sure they sleep some, everybody. No, sometimes they literally do not sleep. And I think that would probably be the first thing. If we feel that we can open up to you and trust you and not be judged, we really will show you more of our lives. We will open up even more. And the more you get to know us, the more you can then realize probably what you can do to specifically help us. I had the pleasure of talking to a mom's group about how to support special needs moms recently. And I was telling them, if you're like, hey, let me know if I can do anything, we're not going to contact you. But if you can be really specific, if you spend just a few minutes and realize, hey, this mom just mentioned that she has 8 piles of laundry and that she needs to hurry home. Maybe, you can be like, hey, why don't I come over for an hour and we can sit and fold laundry together? Or you can go lay down and I'll fold your laundry for you. Or while you take so-and-so to therapy, I can take your daughter to the park with my girls, because I know you said she always has to ride in the car with you, and that has to be really tough on her. Like just small ways. And if you can listen just for a few minutes, you'll probably pick up on some of the ways they're struggling. Or offer to bring a meal and be like, hey, I know you have very picky kids. Tell me exactly what I can bring for you. I'm already going to the store. It'll be so easy for me, and take away that judgment too. Like, hey, I know your kids all eat different things, but what can I bring that maybe you and your husband can eat? Something along those lines. I think that would be really helpful. Those small, specific ways that you're seeing where our life is hard, and you can step in and love us well that way.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And not at all to the same level. I also can see where that also can translate just to motherhood, parenthood across the board too. We all have some level of hard, but yeah. I completely understand what you're saying, especially when it comes to being out in public and, being around strangers, and your child is saying something or doing something that doesn't look typical, or looks, maybe younger than their actual age. The behavior seems to be very toddler-like or whatever it is. How do you tend to manage, the glances or I know you said you feel some judgment. How do you kind of navigate that when you're out and about?
Ooh, that I don't even know if I still have it down. But I got really good early on, just not even making eye contact with people out in public. And in fact, I kind of had an embarrassing story. I had a church member, it's a different church. She's like, I saw you. Are you upset with me? I saw you at Publix and you didn't even look at me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I said, I don't make eye contact with anyone in a grocery store because I have 10 minutes. I've timed it. I have 10 minutes until my son melts down. That's about all he can take in that loud, bright place. And I give him an iPad, which is so taboo. I know, but it helps him not see the fluorescent lights and all the colors and all the foods and the people. And I have had enough comments and stares that I have learned to keep my head down, and I just stroll right through and get everything done. So it's not the best answer, but I think that's sort of where you just get really good at not seeing people. And sometimes I explain my children's behavior and sometimes I don't, because sometimes it doesn't matter to people, and you'll just unfortunately always get comments, and I just try to remain kind and graceful and not snap back, even if I'm having a really tough time and someone suggests that my kid needs discipline. I smile and I'm like, yeah, they're just having a hard day, but thank you. But yeah, it never gets easy, but that's just, you get tougher skin. You definitely get thicker skin for sure.
I could see how that would be kind of required. And I could also see how it would be really hard to not, kind of have Mama Bear show up, because I know me, I'm real defensive of my kids, and sometimes they might actually be in the wrong. I'm not speaking to your situation, but, it doesn't matter to me. I'm Mama Bear, so I, in my own way, can relate to that. And it just kind of breaks my heart that you are walking through life and feeling that level of judgment. I'm just so sorry. But I think that this is such a good reminder to just be patient with each other and understand we don't know what each other is walking through. I think if anything has come out of recording these episodes for me, everybody has a different, it's a different topic, it's a different story, but it's just a constant reminder we do not know what people are dealing with. So yeah, I can absolutely see that.
Yeah, our pastor always says, try to just give everyone the benefit of the doubt. We're all trying our best, and it may not be pretty that day, but just assume that everybody is trying their best. And and I know I've been trying to educate more people at our church that 1 in 36 kids is diagnosed with autism. So they are everywhere. And it's an invisible diagnosis. Like they don't look a certain way. So I always, if you see a child acting way below their age, maybe in your head think, oh, they might be having a hard time. Like I wouldn't call them out for being autistic, but maybe just consider that. And I think it'll give you a whole level of empathy that you may not have had before. Because it's easy to judge and assume. And it's tough. It's tough. And then the other side for the children, like with Down syndrome or cerebral palsy, who do have visual, although they may get more quote unquote passes for certain behaviors, they also then get on the opposite side, get treated like children when they can be, adults. They can, especially with cerebral palsy, their brain is fully functioned. They're intelligent. They're just, their body isn't doing what they probably wish it would do. And then, so on the flip side of that, I also, like to share with people, like, if you see an adult with a special need, don't talk to them like a child either. Like, so they have their own challenges too, it's tough, but you're right. I think it's just being kind, just taking a moment and being kind. And that will always translate well.
So at church, the program that you are heading up, are you heading the program? Is that how that works? Okay.
Yes.
If somebody wanted to volunteer, in that area, what does that look like for somebody at a church that has something like that?
Oh, yes. All right. So our particular church, and this is not everywhere, but we have I like to call it a hybrid ministry. So we have buddies. So you could be an adult or a teenager, and you're partnered with a child with special needs, and you actually go into a neurotypical classroom with them, and you help them participate as much as they're able. You get to know them. So if you can tell they're starting to get overwhelmed, you can be like, hey, let's go take a break and take a quick walk in the hallway and go back in, or give them fidgets. Basically, you're a guide on the side. So we like to say. Or on the other side, we have some children that being included in a typical classroom, although it sounds fabulous, and that is usually our goal, it's not always what's best for everybody. Mm-hmm. We have children where sound and chaos and noise just literally gets to the point it's painful to them. So we offer what we call sensory rooms, and they're separate rooms that are more quiet. We usually have like 2 to 4 kids in there at a time. With 2 adults, I have a foam pit and swings and all the things to help calm their sensory systems down. And so some of our friends are able to go to our sensory room, and then they have a great time at church. We do an adapted Bible story. So they still hear the gospel. They hear it how they learn best. I try to adapt lessons according to how the child learns best. And so then church is also an enjoyable place for them as well. Our goal is we want them to feel safe. They want to come to church, because if you have a child that does not want to come to church, the parents probably are not going to keep going. So yeah, and that has worked really well for us, having those 2 options, and neither are all or none. If you're having a really bad day with your buddy, you can come to the sensory room. It goes in waves. You can flip back and forth, and we do the same for our middle school kids and high school kids. They have a sensory room, their own space that I tried to make for older kids. And then we also have an adult classroom as well.
What does the adult classroom kind of look like? Is it similar?
Sort of. We don't have like the foam pit and the swings. And then we also, at the beginning of class, our adult class actually joins worship with the adults in the sanctuary. None of them have sound sensitivity, so this works well for now. If one of them does, we can alternate. But they worship with everybody. They all love music. And then they come back, and I provide usually donuts or muffins. So it is like an adult community class. Mm-hmm. And then they do an adapted lesson on the TV screen, and they have their Bibles, and they talk. And it's a lot more socially focused for that particular group. It's a pretty small group, but they enjoy. And then they discuss the Bible lesson and what's going on during the week. And we get together a few times a year outside of church, because I want them to really build those friendships. And like, we're going to Monster Golf soon, which I'm really excited about. We're all going to meet up in a few weeks there, and it'll be fun.
That's so cool. I think that's such a beautiful ministry. And like I said, I think it's a gap that we need to kind of, as a church, like work to fill. So I think that's beautiful that your church offers that. I hope more have something similar, you know?
Yes, because 80% of churches in the U.S. do not have a special needs program.
Really?
Yeah. And there's, 1 in 5 children have a disability in the U.S. and 1 in 4 adults have a disability in the U.S. So it is needed. And when you don't have a program, people with disabilities may still attend, but it kind of says like, you're not important enough for us to take the time to make sure you're welcome here. And that's obviously not what Jesus called. I think everyone should be welcome. Everyone has a place and belongs and should feel that way. And I just pray that churches start realizing it doesn't require a lot of money. It doesn't require a special room. Like, it just requires a few people that are saying yes to God and trusting him, and he'll provide. He'll give you what you need to make it grow. I mean, our program started out as just a lady. I think she had her master's degree in special ed and just said, we should have some buddies for these special needs children that are here. This was a long time ago. And it just started out as a few teens that would go into a classroom with some kids, and it just grows. And he just continues to provide. God is good, and he will always give what you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can also understand how maybe some churches don't have the resources, the access to the people even who, would know how to start something like that. And it may be a small church where there's not a need at the moment, but maybe there will be one day, So yes, that idea that God will provide, and it's really important to say yes, when you feel called to step up. So I think it's beautiful that, you were in that exact same position, and somebody was kind of like, well, I don't want to add too much to our plate. And you're like, no, please, I'd love to use my skills. So I think that's great. Yeah. And I also think you mentioned teens. What a great way for like our youth to get involved and to learn these lessons at a very, kind of a young age.
Oh, our teens. We have, our youngest is in 6th grade that volunteers with us. And they are more effective than a lot of our adults. They are amazing. The kids love the teens. They listen to them more than they do adults because it's like having a friend. And I think it works really well. They just, how they relate and talk. It's not so I'm an adult and you're a child. They really feel like they've developed this like friendship. And I love my teen volunteers. They're amazing. They're the bread and butter of our ministry for sure. They're wonderful. And even like seeing them with some of our more challenging kids too, and just how they've developed patience and understanding when they're having a hard day. And it's awesome.
No, I just think that's something, even I'm thinking for my own children. And it is interesting that you say that they relate a lot better, and that they can kind of encourage them to do more things, probably, because they're speaking to them in a way that is relatable. And I don't know, it just kind of makes me think, it's kind of sad that we all grow up. We lose a level of simplicity.
Right? That's true. Yeah, that is so true. Yeah, they'll get on the floor. They'll be on their stomachs playing Legos with the kids. And it's sweet. It's sweet. Yeah. And honestly, like our teens, even we have respite events too for our families, where parents can drop their kids off for free and we'll watch them for a few hours so they can have a date night. Because that's another need, by the way, another practical way to help. It is really hard to find babysitters. Like telling people you have special needs kids, no one's usually lining up at your door to come watch your kids for you. Plus the financial strain of all the additional therapies and medical bills, you also may not have that money. So we try to do this multiple times a year where parents can drop their kids off. They know they're safe. They know us. And it's our teens that show up a lot. And they're just awesome. They know how to have fun. They make the night fun for the kids, which is also what we want because we want the parents to be able to bring them back. We don't want them to beg not to come back. So, yeah.
Oh, I think that's so sweet. So kind of going back to your two boys, I mean, what is it like as a mom, not with just one, but two boys with autism? And honestly, it's probably easy, to talk about some of the things that are challenging. But in addition to that, what are some of the beautiful aspects of it?
Oh, yes. There's so many. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. When Alex was diagnosed, I'm not going to lie, it was hard. You definitely go through a grieving process. And I always say, like, allow yourself to grieve, but don't stay there, because you lose this dream child that you imagined. It feels like everything just goes away in a moment, but it doesn't necessarily. Once you get past that, you see like, oh, this child has just as much potential as anybody else. It's just, he might get there a different way. And, oh my goodness, they're just lovely. It's because they're developmentally delayed. It's like we get to experience all of these beautiful, fun childhood moments even longer. We get to savor the super sweet 2-year-old curiosity stage where they're just running around and laughing and finding everything so fun and funny. We get to experience that through 4. And we get to, my 11-year-old is a little bit more like an 8-year-old. So we haven't even like fully hit the preteen stuff yet sometimes. He still likes watching cartoons and trying to do claw machines to get stuffed animals, and still likes cuddling on the couch with us. And so in that way, like, I love it. I'm like, I get to snuggle. Like, my 6-year-old is like a 2-3-year-old. So he's super snuggly and he loves his mom and he wants to be held and he has this little blankie. And it's just, so I think that's some of the sweet and the joys, and just get to enjoy them longer. And then when they reach like a big developmental milestone, it's a big deal. Like, it's not like, oh, well, guess what? So-and-so walked today. You're like, oh, awesome. No, if you have a special needs child and they started walking, it's usually delayed and everyone gets excited. You have a whole therapy team and everyone's like, what? This is amazing. So it's everything. You just appreciate every single milestone. That first word, you remember it. It's like seared into your brain. Like when they started saying sentences. I don't know. It just makes everything a little sweeter when it doesn't happen so fast and you don't take things for granted, for sure. Or even like their first friend, like they get invited to a birthday party, like the whole family knows about it. Like we sent out a whole thing. So-and-so's going to his first birthday party, but it's, so I think I appreciate that, because I feel like if I had typical kids, I probably would have taken that for granted a little bit more than I do now.
Well, honestly, I'm sitting here getting all teary-eyed because I'm just thinking of my own and how quickly those milestones are just in the rearview mirror. And I mean, it's even challenging for me to stop and think, am I savoring it? And I think that's what is so beautiful about trials of any kind. So as a family, you guys have a set of trials and difficulties that you guys are walking through on a daily basis. But I think being able to see the beauty in what slowing down, offers, and really kind of leaning in. I was thinking this just a second ago. The best way, I think, to just an all-encompassing way to put it, the best way to minister or love on families that are, again, either they have special needs or their children have special needs, is to lean in. Just lean in. And it sounds like get to know these kids, get to know the parents, get to know their families. Because it sounds like everything is it can look so different for each family, like what their needs are. And I just think it's a good reminder for us all just to slow down and see each other, see our own kids, see other families, just look at each other and lean in. I don't know. I just think that's a great reminder.
Yeah, you're so right, because we all are very different. We all have different challenges. But I think taking the time, and because this world, especially now, I feel like everything goes so fast. Mm-hmm. Everything is go, 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 go. You have this and this and this, and you got to sign up for this. And learning just to stop and appreciate and see others. I think that's sometimes really hard too. You get caught in your own life and you don't notice, you don't see, you don't ask, you don't. And really, like, we don't mind answering questions. Like, I love, like, if you really wanted to know about my kids, I would love to tell you about it. But have to feel like you really want to know, not just, hey, how are you? How are your kids? Like, we would be happy to share, because it's hard. And sometimes you just need to say it. When you're having a hard day, just having someone listen is just like, whew, okay, thank you. I needed that. I just needed to get it out. I don't need advice. I just need to get it out. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I absolutely, I just think there's a bigger lesson here. And I think it's beautiful that God sends your sons, like your boys. God sends these sweet souls that, they come to earth with Down syndrome. They come to earth with these, these physical challenges. And sometimes, like, autism, like you said, is kind of it's a quiet one. You don't see it from the outside. But I just think that they're blessings. I think that it's a blessing because they come with such sweet lessons and such sweet reminders. And then I remember there was a kid in high school. I was in chorus, and I think he was a year or two older than me, but he was in my chorus class, and he was fascinating. I can't remember his name, but he had autism, and I love to listen to him because we would ask him, like, in our free time during class. He knew maps. He could tell you every road to get to anywhere in the U.S. So we would be like, how do you go from Atlanta to Detroit? And he would tell you every highway, every road, and it was just so cool. They usually have these just really neat gifts that are so, I don't know. I'm like, I wish I was that smart. That's so cool.
Oh, yes. My son went through a calendar thing for a while, and I could ask him, I'm like, what day of the week was my birthday in 1999? And he would sit there for a minute and he'd be like, it was the Wednesday. I'm like, whoa, it's so cool. I know you're my kid, but mind blown.
Oh, sure.
But they do. And most of them have this, just the childlike, sweet innocence. And I think that in and of itself is a blessing. They're sweet. They're so amazing to get to know. And, just taking the time to do that means a lot to all of us, and them especially.
Oh, well, I hope you and I stay in touch. I would love to meet you in person. Yeah, I'm so thankful that you took some time. I think you're on vacation right now. Thank you for taking time and doing this with me. I'm really grateful.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time to hear how a little slice of what it's like on our journey.
I think it's like I said, just important, and I hope that it helps. I hope this episode helps other families in the same boat, not feel alone. That's really one of my biggest prayers for this specific episode, is that there are other moms and dads that might listen to it and they're like, oh, I feel the exact same way, they just don't feel alone. And I hope it's, just a reminder for the rest of us that aren't walking through the same, struggles, or we're not going through the same things, just to remind. I hope it's a reminder to us to slow down and lean into others. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this so much. I hope you have a great rest of your vacation, and hopefully we'll touch base soon.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much, Tori.